My name is Dana Calderon, 29 years old. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, the kind where you slip off your shoes after a long day, let your hair down, and sink into the comfort of your own room. Rain tapped lightly against my window, and the faint hum of the TV in the living room gave the house its usual warmth. I remember scrolling through my phone, half listening to the sound of my mom humming in the kitchen. Then the front door slammed. The sound cut through the air like a thunderclap. I flinched, the sudden noise sending a shiver through me. When I looked up, Sarah, my stepsister, stormed in. Mascara streaked her eyes red and swollen. She looked like she had walked straight out of a storm and brought it with her. "You ruined my life," she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. I froze. "What are you talking about?" Her voice cracked rage, twisting every word. "Don't play innocent. I know what you did. You've been sleeping with Jason." The name hit me like a slap. Jason, her husband. My stomach dropped. "What, Sarah? That's insane." But she wasn't listening. She stepped closer, shaking her tone turning venomous. "Don't lie to me. I saw the texts. I saw how you look at him. You couldn't stand me being happy, could you?" Her words barely registered. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. "Sarah, listen to yourself. I barely talked to Jason. You've got this all wrong." Just then, the kitchen light flicked off. My parents appeared in the doorway, Mom clutching a towel, Dad's face stern and unreadable. "Sarah, honey, what's going on?" Mom asked, rushing toward her. "She's been sleeping with Jason." Sarah sobbed into Mom's arms, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "I caught them," Mom gasped. Dad's jaw clenched. "Is this true, Dana?" "What? No," I stammered, stepping forward. "That's a lie. Jason and I barely—" "Enough," Dad barked. "Sarah wouldn't make something like this up." I looked between them, disbelief flooding me. "You're just going to believe her, without proof." Mom shook her head, eyes filled with disappointment. "I thought you were better than this." My throat tightened. "Mom, please listen to me. I didn't do anything." But Sarah's sobs drowned out my words. "She's jealous of me. Always has been," she said between fake tears. "She wants to ruin my marriage." I laughed bitterly, the sound broken and hollow. "Jealous? You've been jealous of me since we were kids, Sarah. You can't stand when someone doesn't worship you." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "That's enough. We're not going to listen to you tear your sister down." The word sister burned. My vision blurred with tears. "You're making a mistake," I whispered. Dad's voice was cold. "You've hurt this family enough. Pack your things and go." For a moment I couldn't breathe. You're kicking me out." Mom turned away. "You brought this on yourself." The room tilted. My heart pounded in my ears as I looked at Sarah. She wiped her tears, but a smirk ghosted across her lips so quick my parents didn't see it. That was when I understood this wasn't an outburst. It was a plan. I swallowed hard, forcing down the scream rising in my throat. "Fine," I said quietly. "If this is what you believe, I'll go." I walked to my room, my sanctuary, my little corner of peace, and began shoving my life into a single bag. Every movement felt mechanical. Books closed the photo frame of me and Mom at the lake. I hesitated over that one before leaving it behind. When I stepped back into the living room, Sarah stood there pretending to tremble, comforted by Mom's arm around her shoulder. Dad avoided my gaze. As I walked past them, Sarah whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Guess you finally got what you wanted. Dana. Attention." Something in me cracked, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing it. I opened the door. The cold night air hit me like a slap. Behind me, the door slammed shut, sealing my exile with the finality of thunder. Rain had started again, heavier this time. I stood on the porch for a long moment, unable to move. The house I grew up in, the only home I'd ever known, had just rejected me. When I finally started walking, the sound of my footsteps mixed with the rain. The streetlights flickered one after another, as if mocking me. I wandered aimlessly until I found myself at a park bench, soaked through, clutching my phone, but too numb to call anyone. "Why would she do this to me?" I whispered to the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The world moved on indifferent to the way mine had just shattered. I didn't know it then, but that night wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of a storm none of us were ready for. I woke up stiff and freezing, curled up on that same park bench I'd ended up on last night. My clothes were damp, my phone was dead, and for the first time in my life, I had nowhere to go. When the sun rose, it felt cruel bright and warm, as if the universe didn't care that my whole life had been ripped apart. I walked for hours with my bag slung over my shoulder, pretending I had a destination. I didn't. My mind kept replaying last night like a broken film reel. Sarah's trembling voice, my dad's command. "Pack your things and go." By the time I reached the edge of downtown, I knew where I had to go. Megan's place. She'd been my best friend since college, loud, loyal, and unflinchingly honest. If there was anyone who would believe me, it was her. When she opened the door, her eyes went wide. Dana. What the hell happened to you? I tried to speak, but all that came out was a sob. The dam I'd been holding back broke, and I collapsed into her arms. Minutes later, I was sitting on her couch, wrapped in a blanket and clutching a cup of hot tea. My voice shook as I told her everything. Sarah's accusations, my parents' reaction, how quickly they turned on me. Megan stared at me, her jaw tight with anger. She actually said that you were sleeping with Jason. I nodded, tears blurring my vision, and they believed her. No proof, nothing. They didn't even ask me to explain. She set her cup down hard enough to make it rattle. Unbelievable. You've spent your whole life bending over backward for them and they just... She exhaled sharply. Sarah always had a flair for drama, but this is another level. She's always needed to be the victim, I murmured. Even as kids, if I got praise for anything, she'd find a way to make it about her. Megan frowned, but why now? Why blow up your life like this? I shook my head. I don't know. Unless... My voice trailed off as a thought took root. A memory flashed Sarah's face last week at dinner. Tight-lipped, glancing at her phone constantly. Jason sitting beside her, looking guilty, distracted. Megan caught my expression. What? I hesitated. Do you think she's projecting? Like, maybe she's the one hiding something? Megan's eyes narrowed. Wouldn't surprise me. People who lie that boldly are usually covering up something worse. Her words stuck with me long after she went to bed. I lay awake on her couch, staring at the ceiling, the ticking of her wall clock, syncing with the pounding of my heart. What if this wasn't just jealousy? What if Sarah was desperate, scared of something being exposed? The next few days blurred together. I tried to keep busy, sending out job applications, looking for rooms to rent, doing anything that made me feel like I had control. But my thoughts always drifted back to my family, to my mom's trembling voice, and my dad's cold stare. Every time I picked up my phone, I half expected an apology text, a missed call, something, but nothing came. When I tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. I sent a message that simply said, "Please just hear me out." It was never read. By the third day, I stopped trying. Instead, I threw myself into helping around Megan's apartment, cooking, cleaning anything to repay her kindness. She refused to let me feel like a burden. You can stay as long as you need. Okay, no arguments. Her words meant more than she knew. One evening, as we sat on her balcony watching traffic crawl below, Megan asked softly, "Do you want to go back? If they called tomorrow and said they believed you would, you forgive them?" The question caught me off guard. I stared at the skyline, the orange glow of sunset reflecting off my tea mug. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to. They're my family. But another part of me just can't forget how fast they turned on me, like I was nothing." Megan nodded slowly. "That kind of betrayal changes you." A silence settled between us. Heavy but not uncomfortable. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled faint, but enough to make me glance at the horizon. Megan smirked. "Looks like another storm's coming." I half smiled. Seems fitting. The next morning, I decided to do something stupid. Or brave. Maybe both. I went home. Standing on my parents' porch felt surreal. The house looked exactly the same, but it felt foreign. Like a place I used to know in another lifetime. I knocked 3 times, my hand trembling. Mom opened the door. The warmth that used to light her face when she saw me was gone. Her eyes were cold, guarded. "You shouldn't be here, Dana." "Mom, please," I begged. "Just listen to me for 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "We've made our decision." I didn't do what Sarah said. My voice broke. "You have to believe me." For a moment, her expression flickered. Guilt, hesitation. Something human. But it vanished just as quickly. "You need to leave," she repeated softly, closing the door. The click of the lock was louder than thunder. I stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door, rain starting to drizzle again. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was whisper, "You didn't even ask for proof." By the time I got back to Megan's, my clothes were soaked through. She didn't say anything when she saw me, just grabbed a towel and wrapped it around my shoulders. "That bad?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "Worse." Megan sighed, rubbing my arm. "You can't keep trying to fix people who don't want to see the truth, Dana. You've got to take care of yourself now." Her words sank deep. That night, as I lay awake again, staring at the faint light seeping in through the blinds, I realized something. My family had already decided who I was. Nothing I said would change that. If I wanted to survive this, I couldn't keep begging for their belief. I had to start believing in myself. Still, one question refused to leave my mind, twisting like a thorn I couldn't pull out. What if Sarah's lie wasn't about me at all, but about something she was terrified might come out? I didn't know it yet, but the truth was closer than I could imagine. Moving into my new apartment felt less like starting over and more like surviving a shipwreck. It was a tiny studio on the edge of town. One window, cracked tiles, and a fridge that made a low groaning noise every few minutes, like it was sighing in sympathy. But it was mine. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending I was okay while my family turned their backs on me. Megan helped me move in. She didn't complain once, even after hauling my boxes up 3 flights of stairs in the afternoon heat. Home sweet, box, she teased, trying to make me laugh. I gave a weak smile. Yeah, my very own box. We unpacked in silence for a while. When she noticed how empty the walls were, she said, "We'll fix that. I'll bring some string lights, maybe a few plants, make this place feel less like witness protection." That made me laugh for real, and it felt strange, like my chest had forgotten how. After she left, I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by cardboard boxes and echoes. The silence felt both comforting and unbearable. I'd gone from being accused of ruining a marriage to listening to the hum of a dying refrigerator. I sat on the mattress, no bed frame yet, and pulled out my old notebook. The first blank page stared back at me, daring me to fill it. Day 1, I wrote, "New place, new start. Still hurts like hell." I stared at the sentence for a long time before closing the book. The days blurred together. Work, sleep, survive. I picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop, not because I needed the money, but because I needed the noise. When it was quiet, the past crept back. In the accusations, my parents' faces, Sarah's smirk. Every night, I came home exhausted, dropped my bag by the door, and collapsed onto the mattress. The apartment was too quiet. Sometimes I left the TV on just to fill the emptiness. One night, I caught my reflection in the window. Pale, tired eyes, hollow. I barely recognized myself. "This isn't who you are," I whispered. But maybe it was. Maybe this was who I'd become, someone piecing together the fragments of a life she didn't ask to lose. Megan visited, often refusing to let me disappear completely. She brought coffee plants and sarcastic energy that filled the room like sunlight. So she said one evening, curling up on my one surviving chair, "How's apartment life treating you?" I smirked. "I've learned 3 things. The pipes moan louder than I do the neighbors fight every Tuesday, and ramen counts as a food group." She snorted. "Sounds like character development." We both laughed, and for a moment it felt normal. But then Megan grew quiet, her tone softening. "Have you heard from your parents?" I shook my head. "Not once. It's like I stopped existing." Her jaw tightened. "You deserve better than them, Dana." I didn't respond. Part of me still wanted to believe that deep down my parents missed me, that maybe one day they'd realize their mistake and call, but every day that passed without a word made that hope smaller. Weeks went by. My apartment started to look less like a cell and more like a home. A thrifted rug here, a secondhand lamp there. I even bought a small potted plant, a stubborn little green thing that leaned toward the light no matter where I put it. I named it Hope. It wasn't much, but it made me smile. When I wasn't working, I wrote. Not letters to my parents, I'd stopped those, but letters to myself. Angry, honest, raw. Pages filled with everything I wished I'd said that night. I was loyal, I was kind, I was yours. And you still believed her. It was therapy without a therapist. Every word was a release, every paragraph a tiny act of defiance. One Sunday morning, I found myself scrolling through my phone, looking at old family photos. In one picture, Sarah and I were kids, grinning on the front porch, popsicles dripping down our hands. My dad stood behind us, smiling proudly. I stared at that photo for a long time before whispering, "When did you stop seeing me?" I didn't cry. I thought I would, but there were no tears left. Just a dull ache, the kind that doesn't scream anymore, just hums quietly inside you. That evening, I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. My stomach clenched. For a second, I thought it might be Mom. But the message preview froze me. Subject: you deserve to know the truth. No name, no details, just those words. I stared at it for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the screen. Spam, a scam, or something else. My heart pounded as I opened the email. At the top, just one word, "Hey." Then another line that made my knees go weak. "I know this is probably unexpected, but I need to clear the air. I've been holding on to something too long. You deserve the truth." It was signed, Jason, Sarah's husband. My breath caught in my throat. I reread his name, my pulse quickening. My mind flashed to Sarah's accusation the night I was thrown out the years of silence. What could he possibly have to say after all this time? Hands trembling, I whispered to the empty room, "What truth?" Then slowly I scrolled down. Jason's name glared back at me from the top of the email, the letters swimming as my heartbeat roared in my ears. I took a shaky breath and began to read. Hey, Dinah. I know this is probably the last thing you expected from me. I've been holding on to this for years, and I can't keep quiet anymore. You deserve to know the truth. Sarah lied. I stopped breathing. She accused you of having an affair with me to cover up her own betrayal. She was cheating with someone from her office. When I found out, she panicked. She said it was you because she knew your family would believe her. I didn't speak up then because I was angry and humiliated. I let you take the blame. I'm sorry. My hand flew to my mouth. I felt sick. Attached are messages and photos from her old email, proof of everything. I should have done this sooner. You didn't deserve what happened. I hope you can forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. Jason. I clicked the attachment. There they were. Texts, screenshots, selfies. Sarah and a man I didn't recognize laughing. Flirting meeting at hotels. The timestamps dated back months before she ever accused me. Proof. Undeniable solid proof. I felt dizzy. The world blurred around me. I reread the words again and again, half expecting them to vanish like my mind was playing some cruel trick. Jason hadn't just confirmed my innocence, he'd confirmed every suspicion I'd buried under exhaustion and shame. Sarah was the one who had cheated, and she had used me as her scapegoat. I let out a trembling laugh that broke halfway through part sob, part disbelief. Unbelievable, I whispered. She destroyed my life to save her own. I closed my laptop and pressed my palms to my face. The tears came fast, messy, and unstoppable. Years of anger and grief poured out of me like a dam finally cracking open. When my breathing finally steadied, I grabbed my phone and called Megan. She picked up instantly. Hey, you okay? She asked, her tone shifting the second she heard my voice. I got an email, I said, barely able to get the words out. From Jason. There was a beat of silence. Jason. Yeah, he told me everything. Sarah lied. She accused me because she was the one cheating. Holy, Megan stopped herself. You're serious. I have proof, Meg. Screenshots, texts, everything. Send them to me right now. I did. A minute later, she gasped through the phone. Oh my God. Dana, this is huge. Are you okay? I stared at the ceiling. I don't even know what okay feels like anymore. I should be happy, relieved. But all I feel is angry. Angry that it took years for the truth to come out. Jason's a coward for staying quiet, she muttered. But at least now you can finally clear your name. I sighed. Yeah. But will they even listen? Megan's voice softened. They will. You've got the truth now. That's power. Her words lit something inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't the helpless girl crying on a park bench. I had the truth, the power to confront the lies that had destroyed me. I printed every screenshot, every text, every email. The sound of the printer whirring was almost Cat Calderonic, each page a small victory. I stacked them neatly into a folder, my hands steady for the first time all night. As I looked down at the papers, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about closure, about finally being heard. I glanced at the plant on my windowsill, hope still leaning stubbornly toward the light. Guess we're doing this, I whispered. Before bed, I opened my journal. Tomorrow I go home. I didn't sleep much. My mind kept replaying the night I was kicked out, the sound of the door slamming. Sarah's smirk, my mother's voice breaking as she said, You brought this on yourself. Except now I knew the truth. They were the ones who brought this on themselves. Morning came too soon. The sky was pale and heavy with clouds. I dressed carefully, choosing calm, neutral colors, nothing that screamed confrontation. But inside my pulse drummed like war. Megan called as I was about to leave. You sure you want to do this alone? I have to, I said. This is between me and them. Then go make them choke on the truth, she said firmly. I smiled, gripping the folder. That's the plan. The drive to my parents' house felt unreal. Every turn, every familiar street corner carried ghosts. I hadn't been back since that night. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I finally parked in front of the house, my breath caught. The curtains were different. There were new flowers by the porch. But the ache in my chest was the same. For a long moment, I sat there staring at the front door. The last time I'd walked through it, I'd been thrown out. This time, I would walk in standing tall. I stepped out of the car folder in hand. My reflection flickered faintly in the window, older, harder, wiser. The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of rain. Let's finish this, I whispered. And with that, I walked up to the door and knocked. The door opened faster than I expected. Mom stood there, her hand still gripping the doorknob. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked smaller somehow, tired, older than I remembered. The faint smell of coffee drifted from inside. "Dana," she said cautiously, "what are you doing here?" My voice came out steady, sharper than I felt. "We need to talk. It's about Sarah and Jason." Her expression shifted confusion, then unease. "This isn't a good time." "It's the right time," I replied, holding up the folder. "You need to see this." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." Walking into that house again felt like stepping into a photograph, everything familiar yet painfully distant. The living room smelled of lemon cleaner. The same family photos lined the walls, smiling faces frozen in time. My face among them still framed neatly on the shelf, though I'd been erased from their lives. Dad sat in his usual chair, reading glasses perched low on his nose. He looked up, startled. "Dana." I nodded. "Hi, Dad." His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I placed the folder on the coffee table. "This won't take long. I just want you both to read what's inside." Mom's fingers trembled as she opened the folder. Dad leaned over her shoulder. Silence. The only sound was the soft rustle of paper as they flipped through the pages, text messages, photos, emails, Jason's written confession. Mom's hand covered her mouth. Dad's face went pale. When they reached the last page, I finally spoke. Sarah lied. She was having an affair. She blamed me to save herself. Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. This came from Jason. "Yes," I said. "He sent it all to me. Every message, every screenshot. It's the truth you refused to hear when I tried to tell you." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't know." I laughed bitterly. "No, you didn't want to know." Dad flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I snapped, the years of silence breaking through. "You threw me out without proof, without a single question. You believed her because it was easier than believing your perfect daughter could lie." He looked away, jaw clenched tight. "We thought we were protecting the family." "The family!" My voice shook with anger. "You destroyed it. You destroyed me." Mom tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. "We're so sorry, Dana," she said softly. "We were wrong." Her words hung heavy in the air, fragile, but too late. I took a deep breath. "Do you have any idea what that night did to me? I lost everything, my home, my family, my sense of safety. I begged you to listen, and you slammed the door in my face." Mom's tears spilled over. Dad sat rigid, staring at the floor, his pride cracking but still clinging. "We can't change what happened," he muttered. "No," I said quietly. "You can't. But you can own it." The silence that followed was suffocating. I stood pacing towards the window. Outside, the same oak tree swayed in the breeze, the one I used to climb as a kid. It hadn't changed. The irony stung. "When Sarah lied," I said softly, "you didn't just believe her. You made me believe I was worthless. You made me question my own reality. I kept thinking maybe I really did something wrong. Maybe I was the problem." Mom shook her head desperately. "No, honey, we—" "Don't," I interrupted. "You don't get to call me that right now." Her face crumpled. Dad finally looked up. "What do you want us to say?" "Nothing," I replied. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came so you'd know the truth. So the next time you talk about your perfect daughter, Sarah, you'll remember what she did and what you let her do." I started gathering the papers back into the folder. Mom's voice cracked. "Please, don't leave like this. Let us fix it." I froze, then turned to her. "Fix it? You can't fix years of silence and blame with one apology." Her shoulders shook as she cried. "We thought we were doing what was right." I looked at her for a long moment. "If right means turning your back on your child without proof, then I hope you never feel what that kind of right feels like." Dad stood slowly, his voice low and hoarse. "We'll make this right. Somehow." I met his eyes. "You can't make it right. You can only live with it." I turned toward the door, my pulse pounding. As my hand reached for the knob, Mom whispered, "Dana, please, don't walk away again." I stopped staring at the faded welcome mat beneath my feet. "I didn't walk away," I said. "You pushed me." Then I opened the door. The air outside was cold, sharp. It hit me like a baptism, painful cleansing. I didn't cry until I reached my car, not out of sadness, but release. Years of being the accused, the unwanted, the liar, they all broke away with every tear. My phone buzzed, a message from Megan. "Meg, did you do it?" "Me, yeah." "Megan, me, they know the truth now." "Meg, good. Now let them live with it." I stared at her last message for a while, then typed back, "I will." As I started the car, the house shrank in the rearview mirror, small and distant, just another piece of my past. The road ahead was open. But even with the truth on my side, I couldn't shake one thought. If lies could destroy everything once, what would the truth destroy now? The days after that confrontation felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just Empty, like the air right after a thunderstorm when everything is still dripping heavy and waiting for something new to begin. I spent the next few weeks keeping my head down, working, journaling, rebuilding. The confrontation had given me closure, but not comfort. The truth was out yet. The ache lingered deep and stubborn like a bruise that refused to fade. Mom texted twice that first week. Short messages, careful ones. We're thinking of you. We're sorry, Dana. I read them both, then locked my phone and left them unanswered. I wasn't ready. Megan noticed how quiet I'd become. One evening, she brought over takeout and sat cross-legged on my floor, watching me pick at my noodles. "Talk to me," she said. "How are you really?" I shrugged. They know the truth, but it doesn't feel like victory. It just feels heavy. "That's normal," she said gently. "Closure isn't fireworks. It's just silence you can finally live with." She was right. Silence was the real aftermath. A couple of weeks later, Megan called me at work, her voice buzzing with barely contained excitement. "You are not going to believe what I just heard." I stepped outside to take the call. "What happened?" "It's Sarah," she said. "Word's spreading. People are finally talking about what she did." My heart stuttered. "What do you mean talking?" "One of my coworkers knows someone from her office. Apparently everyone found out about the affair. Her reputation's tanking. She's been fired." I pressed a hand to my chest, stunned. Fired. She tried to play the victim again. Megan continued, but people saw through her this time. No one's buying the tears anymore. For a long moment, I didn't speak. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. Instead, I just felt hollow. "Guess karma finally caught up," I murmured. Megan's tone softened. "You're allowed to feel both relieved and sad, you know." "You lost years because of her," I know I said quietly. "But watching her fall doesn't give me those years back." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering if Sarah was somewhere out there doing the same thing alone, terrified, realizing her lies had finally consumed her. Part of me wanted to hate her. The other part pitied her, because deep down I knew what it felt like to lose everything. A few days later, Mom called. This time I answered. Her voice trembled. "Dana, can you come over?" Something in her tone made my stomach twist. When I arrived, both she and Dad were sitting at the kitchen table looking exhausted. There were dark circles under Mom's eyes. Dad spoke first. "We kicked Sarah out." I blinked. "What?" Mom nodded weakly. After everything came out, she started lashing out at us, at Jason, at everyone. She refused to take responsibility. We couldn't live like that anymore. "She's been lying to us again," Dad added bitterly. "Manipulating, threatening, playing the victim. We've had enough." For a moment, I just stood there staring at them. Sarah, the golden child, the one they had chosen over me, was finally out of their house. "How ironic," I said softly. "You believed every word she said when she accused me, and now you can't stand to hear her speak." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We know we failed you, Dana, and we'll live with that for the rest of our lives." I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. After a long silence, I sighed. "Where is she now?" "We don't know," Mom said quietly. "She left last week. We haven't heard from her since." I knotted my throat tight. It should have felt like justice, but it didn't. It felt like a warning. A month passed. Life settled into a rhythm again. Work, sleep, quiet mornings with coffee and my little plant. Hope still stubbornly green. One afternoon, I ran into an old classmate at a cafe. We caught up awkwardly at first, until she hesitated and asked, "Hey, have you heard about your sister?" My pulse spiked. "Not recently. Why?" "She's not doing great," the woman said carefully. "Apparently she moved in with some distant relative out of town. Most of her friends cut her off. She's been begging people to believe her version, but no one does anymore." I sat there in silence, stirring my coffee long after it had gone cold. That night, back in my apartment, I thought about Sarah again. About how quickly power turns to isolation. How a lie, no matter how convincing, can only outrun truth for so long. She'd wanted attention. She'd gotten it. Just not the kind she could live with. And I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need her apology. I just needed peace. The next morning, I wrote a letter to my parents, not to reopen old wounds, but to finally close them. "Dear Mom and Dad, thank you for finally seeing the truth. I know it wasn't easy, and I don't hate you for what happened, but I can't rush forgiveness either. I'm still healing, and that takes time. I hope Sarah finds help, and I hope you both learn that love means asking questions before passing judgment. I'm doing better now. Please don't worry about me. Love, Dana." I sealed the letter, walked to the mailbox, and slid it inside. When I came home, sunlight poured through the window, catching the edges of Hope's leaves. The plant had grown taller, reaching toward the light like it always did, stubborn, steady, alive. I sat at my small table, opened my journal, and wrote one final line beneath months of pain and healing. Closure isn't revenge, it's freedom. Then I closed the journal, exhaled slowly, and for the first time in years, truly, completely, I felt free.